But they don't understand that becoming an entrepreneur says so much about you. Like, if you tell me you're an entrepreneur, I can tell you about your childhood.
Talk me through that.
What I usually can tell when somebody's an entrepreneur, first thing I can tell is you don't really like authority. What happens to other entrepreneurs,
100%.
myself included, what happens, and I'm not an entrepreneur, but myself included, but entrepreneurs, first thing I know is that you don't like authority, because the motivation to leave a steady income that is so safe and so reliable and just risk it all and just do your own thing usually comes because you hate orders. You don't like a position of authority. You need to be your own boss. You can't go into somebody else's workplace and being told what to do as a grown-up. And so what that signals is there may have been, this is me going in too deep, but there may have been some kind of hostility with one parent or both. There may have been some dictatorship that they didn't like. They didn't trust the authority figure growing up. So then what happens is they start to rebel against authority. And then the idea of having a boss emailing you saying, oh, you are 6 minutes late, they can't do it. Whereas that person is very easy, very happy to just be told what to do, be 55 years old and still clocking in and out of work. They tend to be either people pleasers or had a really passive kind of acceptance of authority growing up. So that's usually the first thing I can tell. Is any of that ringing bells for you?
Definitely. But I think what's interesting there is the fact that it's people who have an easier, not easier grow up, but like life is like they're financially set growing up as a kid, and then they're in like a nice city, not much danger. That's when they might go through that 9 to 5 period and things are a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But for me, I guess like I was always kind of like hungry to provide for people.
Survival mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like my family, very ordinary, didn't have a lot of money, but we're completely fine. Like, and they've helped me a lot to project forward in terms of giving me opportunity. But I kind of like always want, it's probably like proving it to yourself as well. But that kind of like ability doesn't stop is what I've realized. Yeah,
especially if you came from economically deprived backgrounds, if you ever felt unseen financially, like you couldn't have your financial needs met, it gives you that drive. Two things: it either makes you accept ordinary, or it makes you completely fear being broke. You have an intense fear of being poor that drives you, and then there's no cap, there's no like limit, there's no like I'll stop at 100k a year. There's just literally no limit. And particularly when they grow up in environments where I don't know if your viewers would know, but council state environments, the reason why that really triggers entrepreneurship is they don't see a middle class. They either see council state houses or rich houses. There's no in between in their world. They don't see where being a teacher will get you or where being a lawyer will get you. They just see where they're living and like maybe on TV and stuff, all the really successful people. So they end up reaching for the stars a lot more. So there's so much that goes into the motivation behind a CEO and also the sacrifices they have to make.
And those sacrifices are relationships and connections.
Main thing.
As I said to you before, and so the main purpose of my podcast is obviously it's like an entrepreneurship podcast, but it's always an overarching theme is to help younger people live a richer and more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
I use the word richer and fulfilling because it's nuanced, because richer can mean money in the bank, but it can also mean better connections. It can mean a better lifestyle.
Yeah.
So how important is that, do you think, in terms of like when we're building relationships with people, especially in the earlier days, like how do we kind of come into these relationships so that they're actually going to be something that are going to be successful and not lead to divorce?
Well, the problem is there's lots of two main problems I'm finding in modern CEOs. Firstly, the skills that you have to harbor in order to be successful at business are the exact opposite skills you need for successful relationships. You have to be logical, you have to be cutthroat, you have to be emotionally detached, you have to kind of think things through and problem solve, whereas relationships rely on you being non-logical, entirely emotional, entirely connected and in tuned with somebody's emotions. Being a CEO, the last thing you need to be is in tuned with somebody's emotions, because it's like you haven't come here on time, you haven't sorted this out by. But those skills, the more you kind of practice it, the more detrimental it can be to a relationship. So that's the first kind of problem. The second problem, particularly for really successful CEOs, is they attract emotionally detached women. The reason being is because the really emotionally connected woman who's super loyal and super loving, she can't be with a man who's super busy. She can't do it. She's too anxious. She misses him too much. She needs him home all the time. She needs predictability. She needs stability. She wants a home. She wants you to help her put the kids to bed at night. Whereas the woman that's like, yeah, you can go on business trips for a couple of months. Yeah, you know, I'll see you when I see you. She tends to be a bit more emotionally detached. So what happens is that man ends up not having his emotional needs met at work, and sometimes they can be missed at home as well. So they end up having a little bit of a filter for that connection at home as well.
That's super interesting. How does it work then in terms of like, so when people are picking a partner, and obviously like there's like a high number of divorces happening recently. I don't know what the average is, probably like 70% or 60%.
God forbid, yeah.
What do you think are some of those like leading indicators that are leading towards people getting divorced?
People or CEOs? They have different problems.
I would say just say people to keep it more evergreen.
Yeah, people getting a divorce tends to be, first thing I would say is too many alternatives. We live in a times where you can replace your partner while still being in the same room as them. You jump on the phone, you download an app, they are right there in front of you, and you can message someone new. And even if it's not a person, it can be a consumerism is meant, it can be a holiday. I can just go, you're annoying me, I'm going here. Look at the ability to replace emotions are so available now. So I think the alternatives is a really big one. Those with less alternatives tend to last longer because they just don't have the alternatives, so they tend to stay connected. So the alternatives one. The other thing that really kind of predicts it is not being in touch with each other's emotions, like I was saying. So what I mean by that, the reason why that's increasing so much is we have so much access to like phones and distractions. So what happens is when your partners come home with some kind of problem, instead of stopping everything and listening, you're now on your phone, busy, this, that, and the other. The connection dies. And so people are feeling unseen and unloved and unheard. And when people are feeling those things, because we're all kind of a bit like, I don't want to look like I'm being needy, I don't want to look like I'm doing all the work, instead of communicating it, we go to the alternatives. And that's kind of what's happening with life. Instead of communicating and understanding that relationships have their roughs and toughs, you just go to alternatives now because it's so easy.